Good morning. I'm Pastor Allen. Today is Monday, October 12th, and we are continuing our daily Bible study. We are looking at Matthew's Gospel, chapter 27 and 28, which is within the passage of the 7 woes that Jesus pronounced on the Pharisees and teachers of the law. And today we're looking at whitewashed tombs, or painted tombs. Verse 27, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean." And verse 28, "In the same way, on the outside, you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside, you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness." So Jesus says the Pharisees are like tombs, which in Jesus' day could be beautiful. They used to, the stone tombs had carved figures on them, or more commonly, they had a carved box that they carved figures on, and they looked very ornate depending on where in society the person who was buried inside it. And of course, Israel is very rocky, so they didn't always bury them as deep as they wanted to, because the graves were hand dug, so that they were in a cemetery, and people would take a shortcut through the cemetery, or they'd walk through for some reason, and if they stepped on a grave, they were considered ceremonial unclean for 7 days. And so what they did in the cemetery is they whitewashed, or they painted the covers of the tombs or the graves so that people would know that there was a dead body there, and they wouldn't step on it, they wouldn't walk on it, because if they did, this was considered contact with a dead person. And of course, if they were ceremonial unclean, they couldn't be around people, they couldn't teach, they couldn't go into the synagogue. And so the whole purpose was to make sure that people walking by knew that a grave was there. And this comes from the Old Testament, Numbers 19, verse 16, which says, "Anyone out in the open who touches someone who has been killed with a sword, or someone who has died a natural death, or anyone who touches a human bone or a grave will be unclean for 7 days." And so they made sure that they didn't step on a grave or walk on a grave by doing this whitewashing, this painting. But Jesus calls them out in verse 28. It says, "In the same way, on the outside you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness." And we know as we go through this passage that Jesus calls out the teachers of the law and the Pharisees, who occupied a high place in society. He called them out very many times for their hypocrisy and for their wickedness. And, you know, it's really easy to be a hypocrite. Sometimes we are hypocrites accidentally. But some people do it intentionally. They know what they're doing. They know their actions are not right. And that's the problem here that Jesus was calling out with the Pharisees and the teachers of the law. And Jesus is telling us we need to do the opposite of them. And what he's saying, it's not the outside that's important, but it's what's inside. And that's what Jesus is concerned about. That's what Jesus wants to change in us and anybody who will listen. sadly, the teachers of law and the Pharisees did not listen. They didn't listen to God. They didn't listen to the prophets. They didn't follow the Word of God correctly. And it was all about position. It was all about appearances. And that was what was more important to them, rather than doing the right thing or doing the God thing. And Jesus tells us to do the opposite. And so I hope you'll start out this week by doing so. Have a great Monday. We'll talk to you later.